Hello and welcome to 312, the HRP podcast. I'm Tom Simmons, and I am joined today by Shaun and Garfield. Guys, can you introduce yourselves?
Garfield Drummond here with Phoenix Global Health. I am one of the managing partners at Phoenix. We provide COVID testing solutions for the marketplace, and happy to be a part of the podcast today, gentlemen.
And I'm Shaun, Principal and Regional Manager with HRP Associates, and Garfield and I have been working together over the last year, 18 months or so, helping our different clientele get access to COVID testing solutions. So thanks for having me.
As some of you may remember, Shaun and Garfield were the guests on the very first 312 podcast, and they are back again to talk about testing kits and about the state of the field right now. So last time we talked, the idea of home testing kits for COVID was pretty fresh. Then it seemed like we were out of COVID for a little while there. And from my uninformed perspective, I just assumed that the market was going to go with it. But then, of course, we saw the huge winter surge that we're still pretty much going through. And it became very clear that COVID was not going away anytime soon. And the need for home testing kits and similar products seemed more important than ever when we think about getting back to a functional space. Now, as someone who works in this field, Garfield, what's been your perspective on that last year and the changes of it? And what did it look like for you, someone who is really in the trenches on this?
Yeah, so we had a pretty interesting year. When we think back to, let's call it the fall of 2020, talking September, October timeframe, testing was the rapid testing that's in the marketplace today. Was just starting to become very prevalent. The access to, the average person wasn't as great. The only individuals or groups that had access to these test kits were those that carried certain federal certifications to administer testing, or you, the individual, had to go to a testing facility, i.e. a CVS, a Walmart, an organization like that, to get tested. Since then, and I'd say Q1 of 2021, we started seeing a lot more of the rapid at-home test kits hit in the marketplace. Now, as it turned out, during the Q1 period of 2021, we also saw the initial introduction of all the vaccinations. And with that influx of vaccinations, we also started seeing a downtick in the infection levels. We had this inverse reaction or relation between access to readily available test kits that any of the three of us on this podcast right now, or anyone that might be listening to this podcast, could just go to a Walmart, a CVS, or any of those other retailers and get access to a test kit. We saw that increase, and at the same time, we saw a really steep decrease in the infection levels in the community.
Right, so we started seeing that increase in the home testing kits, which obviously dropped off with the vaccination and the corresponding drop in rates of infection. But then when did things start to change in relation to the surge that happened again in COVID cases, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those situations where, as a society, we got pretty comfortable with where the infection rates were going. However, we weren't at the vaccination levels that we needed to be. So as we got out of the spring period of 2021, our current year, where infection levels were very low, vaccination levels weren't as great as they could have been, test kit availability was very high. I had a tremendous supply of CLIA certified test kits. Those are the kits that require, federal certifications to administer at-home test kits. Every distributor out there had ready supplies of all of those test kits. Testing was really low during the late spring and early summer timeframes. And then we went into this, early summer period where infection levels started to gradually creep up again. And that was probably because of the comfort level that society started having with the low infection rates. It's the summertime period where a lot of gatherings, right? You think about the end of the school years, you think about all of the festivities and activities that we partake in, and you look at the reduced or the not optimal level of vaccinations in the community, in some communities, it's a perfect storm, a perfect formula for the increased infection levels that we started seeing in mid-July all the way through. Basically, I'd say I haven't seen the numbers starting to taper down until about a week ago.
And what kind of pivot did you and Phoenix have to make when that change happened? Like, what were you thinking? Like, what was the game plan when vaccines were out, when people were getting them, and we saw that drop? And then how did that change for you and for Phoenix when this surge started happening again, and maybe it became like really a plausible scenario that, there might be like daily home testing required, or that might be something we would want to shoot for generally?
Yeah, so our strategy had been, as we entered the spring period, our thought process was we would go through a lull during the summer periods as far as infections are concerned, and as far as groups wanting or needing test kits. However, we did expect to see an uptick in the need for testing in the fall period when schools reopened, K through 12, as well as higher education, as there were more congregate settings that were prime settings for increased infections. And we also felt that there would be that combination of not just COVID testing, but flu testing that would enter the testing space as well. And so as we looked at what was ahead of us, and this is, going back to the April-May timeframe, what do we have to think about? How should we be preparing? What guidance should we be providing the clients that we're working with and the prospects that we're working with? It was that let's start stocking up and getting ready for the fall, because we won't be completely out of this COVID period. And this was way before the prevalence of the current Delta variant that's circulating throughout the world. This was more about what do we need to do to protect ourselves and to understand infection levels when we're hopefully seeing a decrease in infections, because again, the expectation was that we would see more vaccinations and we would get a natural decrease in overall infections. So to account for that, we wanted to get more kits into the marketplace in the September-October timeframe. We wanted to introduce some of our COVID and flu A/B testing strategies, because even with a decrease in COVID infections, there's still the likelihood that, and not just likelihood, there's still the reality that flu season would be upon us. And the distinction between common flu and COVID, they're blurred lines. Like, you can't just look at someone and say you've got COVID versus you've got the flu. So having testing capabilities to identify one or the other was paramount, and it was part of what we thought would be the ideal strategy.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about kind of what it looks like now. Can you speak more about kind of the current state of play? You're talking about, the importance of the flu testing kits with the COVID to help distinguish between the two. I'm also kind of wondering what changes the Delta variant necessitated, if it was simply a matter of more testing kits, or if there had to be actual changes to the testing kits themselves to account for it, or did that play out for what you guys were doing and working on?
Yeah, so the Delta variant, all of the kits that are on the market right now are capable of detecting the Delta variant. So it wasn't a matter of reformulating, re-engineering the products that were in the market currently. The big challenge, and this has been the challenge since, we're at the end of September right now. Since the beginning of September, the bigger challenge that we've been experiencing has been having a ready supply of inventory. What the Delta variant has done, it isn't so much in the sense that it has caused manufacturers to have to reformulate. What Delta has done is it has increased the infection levels at such a rapid pace that the manufacturers in general were a little flat-foot in how quick they were able to respond and ramp up production of test kits. You couple that with the federal government taking a very, very aggressive stance in being prepared and having access to kits so that they could distribute that through their chains. It resulted in anyone other than the federal government having a very, very difficult time acquiring inventory to distribute to the private sector and for that matter, even the public sector. That is for us, that's the impact of Delta over in the current space.
Gotcha. And are we still looking at a difficulty in acquiring testing kits out for entities that exist outside of the federal space?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, from what I'm seeing, the conversations I'm having with my supply chain, with other clients, other distributors, this isn't going to be remedied anytime soon. We're looking at, another month or two before our inventory levels are back to the levels that we can, turn orders around in, under 7 days. Mm-hmm. And that is the huge challenge in this COVID space. Situations just constantly change, and the ability to pivot to meet such these pandemic level challenges, it's extremely difficult. So, I think that, as we see infection levels decreasing, vaccination levels are fortunately increasing again. It's sort of like the perfect setup for what we experienced a year ago, where infections decrease, vaccinations increase, test kit supplies start catching up at the point that infections are at its low point, vaccinations are at its high point, test kits are at their high point, and demand for those kits are going to start waning once again. And so we need to be cognizant of all of that and prepare ourselves and not fall into the problems we fell into about a year ago or 8 months ago, where we all of a sudden just stopped testing because we thought everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And we just repeat the cycle all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting, Garfield. You just nailed it with all the different events that kind of came at the same time. You have people who were vaccinated, in addition to the people who didn't get vaccinated up until this point, right? Now we have a situation where people, we're having lots of conversations on whether or not they still have antibodies, right? The folks that had access to the vaccines in December and January and February, depending on their body chemistry and all that kinds of stuff. We're talking about booster shots. And so that's a different dynamic than last year as well, right? Is using these testing solutions to determine when you need to get a booster shot, as opposed to kind of, at least what we're seeing in the widespread media is this kind of guessing a little bit. Is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Is it age? You're not hearing any conversations about why don't we just test people to see when they would need the booster shot. Do you have any intel on that?
Yeah, so that becomes, it's a difficult model to apply to the real world right now. Again, thinking about this pandemic and thinking about how society, the medical community, the scientific community has been extremely quick in their response to this pandemic. When you think about, global pandemics of the past, we don't go from death rates at what they were in June of 2020 to really having the ability to squash this virus in 1 year. Like historically, it doesn't work that way. And because of that, I think we have the small sense that we should quickly have solutions that would do exactly what you said, Shaun, which is, you spit in a tube, you take a small blood sample, the average person with average capabilities, and you would quickly know that you are at 100% protection versus 75% versus 25%. And that each one of those levels has a different indicator of what your probability of reinfection or new infection would be. We're not at that point. Like, I don't know that enough time has gone by for the technology to advance so that any one of us can do that. Anyone that's listening, anyone in the community can quickly assess their level of protection. Because of how quickly we've gone in developing these vaccines, I think it creates that false sense that we should have the ability to do the other ancillary testing that would definitively say you're protected and you can keep moving on in society.
So when we look at what's currently on offer now, we talked about how the kits are still effective at finding the Delta variant. Talked about ramping up manufacturing. But do the kits themselves look very different now as opposed to back when we first spoke in September of last year? Have we seen much change in what is actually offered in those kits?
Generally speaking, no. And that's a general statement. The functionality of those kits, the technology around those kits are pretty consistent with where we were a year ago. And that's not a bad thing. I think that is a positive thing because it shows that these kits were valuable products then as it is today. Okay. What we have seen is an increased number of kits that are on the market. We have seen a few additional kits because of the time it required those manufacturers to get their emergency use authorization from the FDA. We've seen more kits hit the market that has other tools available. An example of that is one of the kits that we provide, utilizes a smartphone to do the analysis. It comes with an analyzer, but it attaches to a smartphone so that you're able to get sort of a machine-read test result, and at an affordable price. So between, let's call it January of 2021 and August of 2021, what we did see in the marketplace was additional kits hit the market. Their method of analysis was pretty consistent with what was there before. We have seen a steady decrease in the price point for these kits. And so that made those kits more readily available to the general public and to any consumer, whether that's an individual or a business or any other organization, made those kits more readily available to those groups. We also saw a larger number of the at-home testing, so that you could do this from the comfort of your home and you're still getting a highly sensitive test kit that when administered in some sequence, every 2 days and that's generally how they work. You take one test day one, and then you take another test maybe within from 24 to 36 hours later. By doing it in that manner, you're increasing the effective sensitivity of those test kits. So we did see more of the at-home kits hit the market, but overall the technology remained consistent with where it was before.
Do you have any sense of the degree to which the at-home testing kits make up the share of testing results that get published?
No, I don't have that, and I don't know that there is going to be a great tool that's going to give all of that information. Mm-hmm. Just by definition, the at-home testing, usually there may be one or two or a few or handful out there that is integrated into some public report-in database so that you administer the test and it automatically pushes your result out. But the majority of those kits, it's at the discretion of the individual taking that test. There isn't a report-in requirement for those tests. So any of the large databases that you're utilizing to get test results or infection levels or, negativity, so to speak, those aren't coming from at-home testing.
Okay. So do you think is it likely that people are taking at-home testing kits, getting a positive result, staying home, weathering it, they get maybe a mild case, nothing that needs to, nothing that requires hospitalization or doctor's visit. 2 weeks later, they're better, they're back on, and then their case of COVID is never recorded or never shared or shown within basically the public record generally. And so there's kind of maybe an entire slice of people that have been infected, but that we're not seeing in kind of the publicly available data.
Okay, I'll respond to that from an anecdotal standpoint. I don't have any empirical data that I can share, partially because at-home testing doesn't require reporting of the results, whether positive or negative. But anecdotally, and this is also in guidance from the manufacturers, a positive, if someone uses an at-home test and they test positive, they are likely to seek confirmatory test. And that confirmatory test is going to be a test that's administered outside of the home at one of the traditional testing facilities, and those results are going to be reported. I'm saying that anecdotally. You would still get a record of that in the public record because of what would happen after you or I test at home, we test positive. We may run another test at home. It tests positive again. You're either going to isolate or you're going to go out and get that confirmatory test from another facility.
Gotcha. And a big part of that is that generally speaking, the manufacturer's guidance is if you get a positive test, confirm it by getting another one administered through a healthcare professional.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
That's correct.
I think we're getting close to that, Tom. I think that people are going to pull off the road or something, but I mean, we're going to be dealing with this issue next year. Hopefully not to the level that the Delta variant had with us. But I mean, anecdotally, on the flip side of your question about doing an at-home test and then staying home and just kind of taking care of it all on your own without seeking medical advice. I mean, my family's used the over-the-counter tests in the last month or two with kids getting back to school. It's allergy season in the region that we live at. And not only my wife, but one of my kids have had the sniffles at some point in time. And, we acquired those tests to see if we had to adapt, right? Make changes. Is a kid going to go to school? Do we need to call for a doctor's appointment? Do we need to cancel that thing? Do we need to reach out to the families we were around, the past weekend? I think that that's the space that we're really moving into. And I'm not sure how many folks are really utilizing the kits like that. I can tell you that when we had the scare with my oldest, getting online to a big box store like a Walgreens and a CVS, I mean, we couldn't find an appointment, as of 3 weeks ago. So this was during the peak, right? But we couldn't find a place to get testing. We even had an appointment with the pediatrician was days away. So in order to try to get that kind of good feeling that it wasn't COVID, us having access to those tests was key to kind of moving on with our life there, that we didn't have to make a bunch of adjustments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that I think is certainly the direction that the market is going in. Not just the market, the community is going in. It's almost like you will see in the next year to 2 years, households will stock test kits the way they stock Band-Aids, because no one is going to get to that super comfort level until the virus is 100% annihilated everywhere.
So we're looking at our expectations for the future. You really are seeing that kind of ubiquitous testing kits in the home. I mean, how far away do you think we are presently from that?
Not very. I would say within the next year, so by summer of next year,
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing on the manufacturer side and the lessons they've learned from the past 8 months is that this isn't a temporary situation.
Mm-hmm.
That they have to maintain some production capacity for these test kits. We're seeing more manufacturers come to market with the at-home test kits. So between a larger number of manufacturers providing at-home test kits, the understanding that we're not out of the weeds and we have to maintain some production level of these kits, we will see more households just saying, I need, Shaun's example, where it's days, if not weeks, and getting an appointment. No one wants to have that uncertainty. And so, for my household is a little different. I distribute these kits, so I generally have access to them. But the typical household, they're going to say, you know what, better safe than sorry. I'm going to, make sure that I have, 6 or 8 or 10 kits on hand at any time. And, just hold on to it. They're generally going to have a 6, 9, 12-month shelf life. So we're good. That peace of mind, I think, is going to become more commonplace, or the desire for that peace of mind by having these kits on hand is going to become more commonplace.
Absolutely.
Garfield, going back to the supply and demand discussion, you had mentioned obviously the Delta variant. We touched on the concern for vaccine effectiveness waning. Let's talk a little bit about the White House's mandate of test kits and what's happening in the business communities. You have Tyson Foods, United Airlines, Delta came out in the last couple of weeks discussing or citing that unvaccinated employees would either need to get vaccinated or do some testing, or they're going to increase their insurance premium. How has that affected supply and demand in regards to what you guys have been seeing as far as orders and things of that nature?
Short term, it has certainly resulted in an increased order flow for us. I think that will continue for the short term. There is a lot of uncertainty about the mandate and how those mandates are going to be, essentially administered and managed and monitored and so on and so forth. And so there's still, with uncertainty comes delays in action. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen because of the mandates, we're going to see increased vaccinations. We're also going to see increased number of test kits being sold because companies, organizations are going to need that alternate strategy where they have unvaccinated employees. That will, I think, taper off a little bit, but the need to test is going to be constant. It may not be at the current testing levels. Like there is a tremendous amount of testing capacity out there right now, not just in the professional labs, but what you will see in the at-home environments. I'm saying we'll see because we are really we're going through a period, and I think it'll last for another 2-3 weeks of the demand is so high that the supplies aren't keeping up with the demand for the at-home testing world. But that will get into equilibrium in the near term.
So obviously, without divulging names of companies and stuff, what do those clients of yours look like? Are they government clients? Are they manufacturing? Like, is it the whole gamut? Obviously, those are entities, associations, companies that are trying to comply or get ahead of the mandate, regardless of the questions about how it's going to be implemented?
Yeah, so we're seeing it across all the segments that we sell to. We're seeing it healthcare organizations that are administering testing. We're seeing it in K through 12 institutions that want to have some testing capability. Some of these K through 12, they carry the CLIA waive certification so they can administer those types of tests. They are also looking for at-home kits so that they can deploy other strategies for testing in their environments. That being sending kits home with teachers or school administrators, so on and so forth. We're seeing testing on the manufacturing side. So again, across every segment, every sector of our client base, we're seeing increased activity from where we were 3 or 4 months ago.
And then I guess last question for me is, I had contact with an individual who had access to their state's supply of the Abbott kits. And the question is that they heard from the state that their supply was out. And so they were kind of they had comfort with the program that they had implemented, and they were having the testing solutions provided by the state, which was provided to that state from the federal government. So there seems to be a shift in that a little bit as the supply kind of dries up on that specific avenue for acquiring tests. It seems like folks are kind of left in the lurch a little bit to reach out to find their own testing solutions if they want to continue those programs.
Yes, and that is absolutely part of the increase in activity that we've seen. We've had new clients come on board that were previously acquiring their test kits from their local health organizations. There's no capacity, there's no inventory along those lines, so they have to seek it out via other parties. So the need to test, the requirement to test has forced a lot of organizations to get kits by any means necessary, where they were getting them at no cost because of certain federal programs. There's just no inventory, and so it certainly impacted our business in that we're getting requests where we previously hadn't gotten those requests.
All right, good conversation, Shaun, Garfield. I am sure we will be meeting up again to revisit this topic as the circumstances change and the situation changes with COVID as we continue to go through. So thanks for joining us.
Shaun, Tom, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Good talking to you all.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Folks, life at HRP is divided into working hard and playing hard, and the 312 podcast is no different. And now that we worked hard, it's time for the play hard section. And it sounds like play hard might have started without us, so let's jump in now and go to myself, Everett Anderson, and Joe Cardinale. I don't know if that's internet related, though.
I know it's not, but it's just funny. It's just him, though.
I'm hardwired. I got a gig internet, so it's not me.
You're the other one getting dropped out, so.
I think it's my PlayStation.
Mine works good.
I didn't say yours worked bad. I think.
What do you got behind you there that's got the lights on it?
Fish tank.
Oh, it's a fish tank.
Yeah, on top of the fridge.
I couldn't tell.
Everett, describe your room setup.
My room setup.
It's got 4 walls.
It's a square.
Wow.
So this way, in front of me is a big window looking out into the cul-de-sac in the front of the house. Then behind me, I've got a couch. Next to me, I've got a chair. Next to that is a shelf with some speakers on it, some other things.
Now, is this your office?
Yeah. And then I've got behind me, there's 4 Star Wars abstract artwork things. And then I've got
I see 2 right there.
Yeah, they're above them.
Ah.
And then I've got a Star Wars.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, that's the rug you bought. That's right. Yeah, we just redesigned our layout at our house, and now we'll have an office we're going to be putting together.
Yeah, I wanted to do something that was like something that you could tell it was my office, but it wasn't like you walked into like a comic book convention. I don't want it to look like that. Everything's very understated, I guess, if from people listening. It's not like It's not like I have, something stupid on the walls and on the floor or whatever.
One wall is made entirely of Funko Pops.
Yep. Oh my God, I hate those things.
So stupid. I can't believe that's appealing to people.
I wonder their like yearly revenue just in Funko Pops.
It's gotta be insane.
It's so ridiculous.
Those are the little dolls with the big heads, right?
Yeah.
Giant heads.
Stupid cartoon.
I heard there's
big
stuff
head.
inside their heads.
I keep seeing
No.
TikToks of that where people cut open the heads
Is it
and there's
true?
a little brain in there.
I
don't know if it's fake or not. I've seen the
all
videos.
right, well, I just bought one for Joe. It was a Fortnite one. Well, I didn't buy it. He won it.
Oh, boy.
We were at Great Wolf Lodge, getting the tickets and stuff, and he bought it. I told him let's cut it open. He doesn't want to yet, but eventually that thing will be cut open, and I'll let you know.
All right. Well, just
I was shaking. There's nothing. It doesn't sound like there's anything in there.
they're pretty tight in there.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, if we shake you, we won't hear your brain rattling around.
Maybe we should do a YouTube video on it.
Right?
Are there brains in Funko Pops?
Tell Joe, you want to be a streamer? We got to cut this thing open.
But the video will just be like Tom putting a Funko Pop like in a hydraulic press to just like smash it to bits.
Ooh, we could
That's all
play
it is.
the music from Casino during that scene. You ever see that scene in Casino when they put the guy's head in a vice?
Yeah, I don't remember the music that was going on.
Was there no music?
I don't remember. I'm sure
It's
there
probably
probably
just like
was.
general suspense music.
Yeah, probably was.
So, Everett, your internet keeps dropping out, apparently.
I mean, I don't think it's me. I've tested my internet multiple times. It's not my internet.
One of the many frustrating things about trying to get online and play with people generally. So, since video games and online gaming is so frustrating, why do we keep doing it?
I mean, I keep doing it because it's the only way for me to interact with any of my friends from home.
Yeah. I mean, that's one part, is the interaction.
Especially during COVID. I feel like COVID, that was like how I was interacting. Obviously I was talking to other people outside of video games, but like that's how you get your some fun time in that you mentally, so you don't go insane.
I don't really get too frustrated at the video games, though.
Joe.
I mean, I say no and, drop the F-bomb every once in a while when I get killed, but it doesn't bother me. Like,
I think Joe is very at terms with how bad he is.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is.
Maybe that's what it is, but I don't get to the point where I'm like, I'm throwing the controller or just quitting and not playing. I don't know. I still find it fun.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy hanging with you guys, even if I'm the worst one. And then every once in a great while, I'll have a decent game that I could brag about for months. What about you?
I think the most frustrating part is the when it doesn't work the way it should. I think that's the worst part.
I agree with that. I think that's the worst part.
I think it's like any other thing that is extremely concentration focused, that you just get amped up for it, and that you just keep going back for that hit of adrenaline or whatever it is. I mean, it's the frustration and anger you get from that is a lot like what you get from road rage, which requires the same kind of intense concentration while operating,
That actually made me think of
Doesn't
something
always
funny.
get the concentration it needs, though.
But if that's the case, Dan should definitely not play video games with us.
I don't think you should.
Oof. If you're comparing it to road rage. Holy moly.
I think it'd be fun to do it once just to see what would happen.
He'd
Just
be
to see
fine
that-
he'd be fine at first. It'd be like the 2 or 3 days of doing, like the second or third time doing it, I think he would just rage quit and never pick it up again.
This is Dan Titus, CEO of HRP.
I think he would get frustrated that he doesn't know anything. Like, he doesn't know how anything works, and I think he would just be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this.
I don't know. I think he figured it out pretty quick.
No, the frustration I think would get to him.
Well, especially when there's other people around you that know what they're doing. Like, that can be a frustrating thing for anything, right? Like, that could be like for example, like if you go golfing with two guys that golf regularly and you don't golf, and like they're doing things that you're just like you can't even fathom doing. You're like, why am I even trying here? Like,
point.
what's going on here?
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's definitely a you thing though. Like that's a thing, but like that is an acute irritable issue for you.
I mean, I'm the same way though. I'm with you. Except video games, it doesn't bother me. I suck and I still play.
I think the biggest part about video games that has been frustrating is that everything has kind of moved to online, and I think that's what changes a lot. Because, like, I mean, my whole life, like, I didn't have, like, online games weren't a thing until I was in, like, maybe late middle school, early high school. Like, that was when it started, kind of thing.
For me, I was an adult. I think I had kids. I had 2 kids by the time I started multiplayer gaming.
But like, if you're playing by yourself against people that aren't real for so long, like, it's like there's no bar, right? Like, it's
just
there's
pass a
no
level.
Yeah, and then like you get to play online where people are like way better than you, and you're like, wow, why am I even doing this?
They're
like
cheating.
You're just yeah. So I think that's what changes it. But coming back to it is like that you just want to get out of it what you thought you could get out of it, but then you end up getting angry again, and then you leave.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it's a
very
vicious
much,
cycle.
I still very much enjoy I still very much enjoy single player gaming. Looking forward to a few games that are coming out.
I agree.
I've been playing Marvel, The Avengers.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much done the first go around, and I know the Black Panther is coming. Is it out or is it coming out? Can't remember.
I think it's next week.
So yeah, it's good. It's entertaining. It's short though. It's got a lot of like repetition side missions.
It's very repetitive.
Yeah, so I mean, it gets kind of boring.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I could probably finish the game in 2 seconds if I wanted to, but
it's a very like mindless.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to play it just to like literally be a zombie for like an hour or
Yeah,
two.
exactly.
And then be like, I'm bored, and then I'll do something else. Like, it's very like, it's not what I would want to do if I was like, I want to get in here and like, like really play a video game. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's very like, let me mash some buttons around and see what happens.
To me, actually, the most anticipated game that is coming out for me is the Witcher 3 remake for PS5. Sometime later this year, but that's the one I want to really play.
Witcher 3 now seems fine to me. I don't know if I need a remake for
Yeah,
it.
I've got the PS5, got the nice TV. I'd like to see it.
I think the creators of Witcher and the creators of GTA are on the same level, where they're just never going to create anything new ever again. I mean, this would be the 3rd time remaking it, wouldn't it be? Or 2nd?
What?
Witcher 3.
What's it?
There's only
PS4 game?
I thought they already remade it for
PS3?
Xbox One and stuff.
Okay, no, maybe it was like a port, but it wasn't like a remaster or anything, as far as I know.
This is supposed to have a little bit new content to it that is related to the show.
Okay.
So I don't know what that means, but
Yeah. You know what? It'd be a really funny segment to this is if we just talked about really funny website inquiries that we get.
What was the one that came in?
So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Is the one that came in about is like in London.
Yes.
oh, the apartment.
Oh my god, it was
What's
so
his name?
funny, and I saw it. It was like a Saturday morning. Hold on, I gotta find this.
That was good.
This,
Yeah, bring that up and read it for the audience.
yes, I will.
Oh, you're still doing.
If you want to explain, Tom, you want to explain like what these are and where they come from?
Yeah, so whenever someone goes on to the HRP website and looks for a way to contact us, there's a little form they can fill out where they put in their basic information and let us know whatever it is that they are interested in, whether it's some service they want to ask about, just a general inquiry. It's basically just a text box where they can write anything. And every so often, we get people who definitely don't want to talk to us, want to talk to somebody else, but for whatever reason, they decide to fill out the form and send it our way. And one particularly good one came in a week or so ago. Everett, do you have that one up?
Yes, I do. So this came out. This is Saturday. This came in last Saturday. So obviously, so it comes in, it has name, email, phone number. How'd you hear about this? Whatever. Like, the phone is obviously a European phone number. It's way too long to be not that. So starts with, hi there. This company is, I believe, the registered owner of number 9 Salterton Road, London N7 6BB. New tenants have moved in recently, and the night and day partying is causing neighbors serious disruption. Last weekend, they had a party that lasted right through to the afternoon with some absolutely blatant drug taking going on outside in the full view of the neighbors. Please, could someone call me on phone number? We'll have no option to start calling out the antisocial behavior team in the council of this. If this continues, but they said of this continues. So yeah, one of definitely number one on the craziest website inquiries we've gotten before.
Yeah, in case anyone out there isn't aware, we're an environmental engineering and safety consulting firm in the United States, based in Connecticut. We are not landlords in London.
No, we are not. So what is this council that they have over there?
Councils are just like the local neighborhood governing bodies in England.
Yeah, they found us via web search. So I'm not sure why or how, for some reason, we came up as the building owners for this particular building. But definitely a pretty good laugh when I saw that one.
I don't know how you navigate to that area of our website to fill out that form, and you can't figure out that we're not who you want to talk to.
Well, the funniest part is, right, so right next to the website inquiry, where you type it in, has all of our locations. All of our office locations are right there, right next to you. So I'm not really sure how you can go through with it and not see that and be like, these are not building owners. Like, I just don't it's just, none of it makes any sense. I think my favorite part is that the name of the person that sent it and the email are two different people.
Everett, Joe, thanks for joining us on this episode of 312 for this Play Hard section. I'll see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. 312 is a production of HRP Associates, produced, recorded, and edited by me, Tom Simmons, with technical assistance from Everett Anderson. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Check out our YouTube channel as well, or reach out to us through hrpassociates.com to learn more about any of the services we talked about today. Stay safe, everyone. Till next time.